This is Mr. Coker with Foundations of Algebra Lesson 8.3, Writing Linear Equations. In the last video, I talked about when we're given an equation and then we need to graph it. And in this video, we're talking about doing the opposite. So in this video, we have a graph, and then we want to write an equation. If you look at my board, you'll also see a table. So I'm going to just go through the process of writing an equation first from a graph and then from a table. Now, if you're given a graph that looks like this and you're asked to write the equation, first thing is, remember that a linear equation is written with two pieces of information. It's got a slope which goes in this box, and it's got a y-intercept which goes in this box. So slope and y-intercept. That will come in handy for each one of these. So the slope and y-intercept are the two numbers that we're going to find. In an equation, you always have the y and the x, unless, again, like I mentioned in the last video, when we have like y equals a number or x equals a number. But typically you always have the y and the x. So in this equation, the first thing we want to look at when you look at this graph is the y-intercept. Now here's our y-axis and our x-axis. And on the y-axis, where does it cross? 1, 2. So it crosses at 2. This is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 2. So when we write the equation, we're going to write something x plus 2. 2 is the y-intercept. Remember, this is blank right now, but it's not going to be. I'm going to put the slope here. Now we need to find the slope. Let's look at this line. The first thing we want to look at is it a positive or a negative slope? Well, for traveling left to right, we go downhill, the slope is negative. I'm going to write m for slope equals, and I'm going to start by writing a negative. And then I'm going to do my slope triangle. Remember that slope is represented by a fraction with the rise, which is your up and down, how far you move up and down, over run, which is how far you move left and right. So I'm going to start by counting how far we go up and down. Now we're traveling from this point to this point. So I drew down and then over to get to it. I'm going to count how far we go down. 1 unit, 2 units. That's 2. So up and down is 2. So on our slope, I put a 2 on top. Now I'm going to count how far we go left and right. 1 unit, 2 unit, 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. That's 3. And so 3 units left and right. That is the bottom of the fraction. That's our run. So our slope is, our y-intercept is 2 and our slope is a negative 2 over 3. Negative again because it goes downhill. So our equation is written in the format y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. Should be pretty easy, I hope. When you have a graph, it's pretty quick and easy. Now there are so many different factors that could come in here. so many different types of lines that we could graph. We could have one where it's a straight line, like I mentioned, I showed in the last video. We could have one where we don't have a fraction, where we wind up with like 2/1 or something, and we change it into 2. We could have one where we simplify fractions, like 2/4 becoming 1/2. Things, it's so many different things that could happen. I just want to show you the basics of how to do it. Different types of examples. It would take a very long time to go through all the different types of examples you have, but this will give you the basics. Y-intercept, slope, and put it in this format. Okay. So the next one is a table, and here on a table we don't have a graphic representation, but we do have this is a visual representation in the form of a table. So first thing, again, we want to find is y-intercept. Now when we are finding the y-intercept on a graph, it's easy. You look at the y-axis and you just look, well, where does it cross? Where does it cross? And there it is. But when you have a table, as we do here, well, you've got to give it a little bit of thought. Because we can't just look. Well, what is the y-intercept? It's not just where it crosses the y-axis. It's also, what is the value of y when x equals 0? So on the graph, if we look at the x-axis, when we're at 0 on the x-axis, our value on this one is 2, correct? So our value, here's x is 0 and y is 2. If we wrote that as a point, it would be 0, 2. That's important because when we are writing our equations off of a table, we want to look, when does x equal 0? When x equals 0, y equals 6. So the y-intercept is 6 in this one. Now that's pretty easy as long as this is represented in the graph. It's pretty easy to find. You just look at it. What about the slope? Well, the slope, we could find this in a couple of ways. One way we could do it is to, remember, these are points. We have our x's and our y's. We could do something like put 1 comma 9, 0 comma 6, and subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. 1 minus 0 is 0 is 1. I should say I put 0. And then write that as rise over run. Rise over run. We can do that and we get 3/1, which simplifies to 3. And that's our slope, of course, is 3. And that's what I talked about 2 videos ago. In this case, there's an easier way to find it because the slope is also called the rate of change, and that's how much our y's are changing every time that our x increases by 1. Here it's a nice easy one to find because here is we have negative 1, 0, 1. So the x's are increasing by 1 each time, and the y's are increasing by how much? Well, 9 minus 6, of course, is 3. So it's easy to find here that our slope is 3. Now, it's important that you know this, how to find slope this way. And the reason is because we could have a table where we're not given, where the x's don't go by ones. The x's could go by twos or go by threes, go by fours, go by anything. And we need to be able to find the slope no matter if the tables are more difficult to read. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. We have a y-intercept and we have a slope. Well, if we have a y-intercept and a slope, the rest should be easy, because now we're going to write y equals, and I'll stick it in this little blank space, y equals, our slope is 3, so I'm going to put 3x, and our y-intercept is 6, so I'm going to put plus 6. And now we are done. So you can find slope, I misspoke, you can find y-intercept and slope both from graphs, you can find them from tables. And just like with the graphs, a table could be set up in such a way to make, there are many different ways it can be set up that will test your, kind of test your cleverness to different degrees. However, as long as you know the basics, as you know the basic rules, I don't think you'll have much trouble with it, no matter what they throw at you. Just, you need to know the y-intercept, which is where the y crosses, where the line crosses the y-axis, and also is the value of y when x equals 0. That is the y-intercept. That is your constant. It goes by itself in the equation. And the slope is, on a graph, can be found with a rise over run. And if we have a table, it can be found using our slope formula. It can also, it sometimes can be found a little bit easier if our graph is a simple, if our table, I should say, is a simple one like this. But this will always give it to you. So, in this case, as long as you know that, then that, of course, that is your coefficient of x, and you know how to set up the equation, writing linear equations is pretty easy. So, anyway, this is it. Hopefully it's not, hopefully you kind of get it right away. If not, it just takes practice.